Hello, Robert.
Hello, Gloria. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Few technical issues, but we are here, are we not?
Oh, we are.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I did this on the others, is I'm making you a co-host just in case I get booted off. I will come back. You just stay there and talk to the audience, as long as it's not about me. So, in my world, my reality, we're time traveling again. It is, what time is it? It is 20 to 10 in the evening. What time is it there?
4:42 Eastern Standard Time in the Eastern U.S.
I don't understand Eastern, Western, or anything. I just know I'm in the future, so I'm letting you know as I let the others know. It's all good. Your future's good because I'm here waiting for you. Just so you know that, Robert. Okay, guys, welcome to Inception Podcast, where we're having a conversation, so not an interview. Two people, one in one Zoom room and one in the other. Obviously, I'm the bossy one, as you do. Now, Robert here. Robert is a successful psychotherapist. However, there's a caveat on that. He's tried desperately to sort me out, and he's failed miserably. Okay, he's not qualified enough for me yet, are you, Robert?
No, it takes more years of training.
It will do, especially for me. Anyway, Robert, I see Robert as a researcher. Okay. And me and him sort of connected, or him and I, should I say, with his involvement in Steiner's historical warning. So I'm reading it off my auto cue here because it's late at night in the UK. He's also into AI and the singularity. However, tonight, me and Robert have had a few conversations on consciousness. And even though, there's a disclaimer coming here, even though Robert is from Italian descent, he does not speak fluent Italian and is not connected or affiliated with the mafia. So he's literally gone down in my eyes. Do you know what I mean? But he is an amazing jokester. He has wonderful jokes, the brilliant sense of humor, extremely insightful when it comes to consciousness, has his own theories, his own truths, and we've had some wicked discussions off camera. So, Robert, here we go. We're just having a conversation, Zoom to Zoom. And I've got my hair in the plaits. I told the other guys, hair's in the plaits. I'm chilled. Robert, what is the human experience? What's your perception of the human experience?
Well, to put it simply, I think we're here to learn lessons in this particular dimension. I think that there are many other dimensions where we exist. But I think here we're meant to meet certain people, we're meant to have certain experiences, we're meant to exercise our free will to create. And I think that humans occupy an important part in the universe. We play an important role in the universe, in any kind of cosmology you can think of. I kind of reject the idea that we're just physical beings who evolved, after hundreds of thousands of years from primates.
Yeah.
And or morphology did, or bone structure did. I mean, there's truth in that, but there's a whole other dimension to who we are that it goes far beyond any kind of Darwinian evolution or any biomechanistic theories, which can't explain the beginnings of life anyway. So I could go on, but I think that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, well, great. That's actually touched on the second sort of area we want to look at is, well, then who am I? So if you said to yourself, who am I? You're not the meat in the suit. You're not this, blah-de-blah. Who am I? Who are you? In your truth, in your true essence, who are you?
Speaking to me personally, or speaking about people in general?
I'm speaking to you personally.
Who am I? Well, in terms of this interest, I'm beginning to feel like my what I can contribute is a perspective that is broader, I think, or at least attempts to be broader and fits in a range of UFO phenomena, paranormal phenomena, into more of a cosmological perspective on human evolution. So you're talking about who are we? I think we are evolved. I think we are evolving, and we have important choices to make in different directions that we can go as a species.
Okay. Let me twist that slightly. So my truth is that I am a conscious being, a spiritual being, whether divine, whatever name. I'm a conscious being, part of consciousness, the whole, having a human experience. Does that resonate at all with you?
Yes, I think we certainly have much more to us than our physical bodies. I think we have a soul, a spirit. Different systems divide things up or describe things differently, but they all talk about a non-material aspect of consciousness. To me, the interesting thing is the nature of being. If you have consciousness, that means you have being.
Yep.
I think to use the term consciousness is almost like saying the ocean is filled with water, right? Yeah, that's true. There's no question about it. But how is consciousness broken down? And it seems to be broken down into various beings that are all evolving, whether in the human realm or the animal realm. There's in many different systems, there's the angelic realms, and the Buddhists have their various dimensions of existence. The ghost realms, the predator realms, the warrior gods, the peaceful gods, and so forth. So there's not one way of describing all that. Yeah, but we certainly are spiritual beings in a physical body. I think the search for meaning, in terms of psychotherapy or in terms of sort of my research interests, is the most important human quest, is to figure out why we're here, what is our purpose, and not allow ourselves to be limited in thinking of ourselves as purely physical beings, or having no purpose, or being just the Earth being a small dot in the universe, and it's kind of the Carl Sagan perspective on cosmos. I prefer the Edgar Mitchell perspective on the Earth, seeing it as this beautiful living organism. So again, I probably could go on and on with that, but
that's okay. You've actually touched on another aspect. It leads into like, why am I here? So if we've come to the point we're saying, okay, your truth is you're aware that you're a spiritual being, a conscious being, and that's how you would define yourself. Okay. Why am I here? If you ask yourself that question, like, what is the purpose of you, this spiritual being here, doing the research, doing what you're doing, and the journey you've had? Why are you here? Why are we here? What's your truth?
Well, I do believe in karma and reincarnation. So that's I think important to kind of put out there. I think most, if not all, major religious systems, either now or at one time, had reincarnation as an important part of their doctrine. And there's different theories, so to speak, of karma and how it works. Even all the Buddhists can't necessarily agree on all of it. But there is this idea that we have multiple lifetimes, and that we have free will to act, and that creates karma. And over many lifetimes, we develop different connections, different relationships. Some of our interactions are positive, some of them are not. We have, I think, amends to make. For some people, they have to put a lot more work into that than others. Some of that, I think, can only be done in this realm. So karma is a very mysterious thing. It's something I'm studying much more intensively in terms of Rudolf Steiner's theories of and perspectives on karma, Buddhist perspectives on karma. The idea that we have this memory bank that exists, whether you call it the Akashic records or some physicists have speculated that plasma, some sort of plasma structure, stores all this memory. But what it really comes down to is, in human lives, I think there is a purpose to it. We're meant to have certain experiences. We're meant to be given certain opportunities. We're meant to meet certain people, to work through karma, and for opportunities for growth. It's not, to my mind, a punitive system. I think it's a system where we're given every opportunity to grow.
Okay. We will come back to these topics. We're just sort of generalizing, just getting into the conversation. So the last part of that section of it is, so what is reality in relation to us conscious beings? What is reality from the Homo sapiens sapien perspective? What's reality? What's your truth about reality?
Well, that's a great question. I think the best understanding I have is that different worlds are, in a sense, created for different beings at different levels. For instance, we see about 5% of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
This is a world that was created for us. And, if we don't mess it up, it's very aesthetically pleasing. It's a very beautiful world that we live here on Earth, or live with on Earth. So I think in many ways, this was created for us. So there's different realities. There's not one reality. There's a reality of bees, what they see and feel, the reality of birds, the reality of all the different beings on this Earth. So there isn't one reality. I think the important distinction to make in these times, to my mind, is between organic and artificial realities. Yes, we can create pretty marvelous machines that create augmented reality, virtual reality. Again, that gets us into the whole, the dangers of transhumanism and AI and Steiner's Ahrimanic deception and all the stuff that I've written about and talked about. But that, I think, is in contrast to the organic reality that is geared towards human beings. As we develop more supersensory abilities, and we'll see more and more of what's really out there. When we have mystical experiences, or maybe under the influence of DMT or things of that nature, we can see more. And I think that there are certainly greater realities than our three-dimensional world.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean this three-dimensional world is some sort of illusion or fake. The idea of Maya isn't that this world is illusory. It's that it's a special world set up for mankind. Just like, again, there are special worlds set up for each living being on this Earth who hear, see, feel, and taste different things. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, your truth, absolutely. It makes total sense to me. If we could just dig in a bit deeper on that, this is, let's go down the rabbit hole on your truths. My truth is, I come from the non-duality perspective. So that is, I am consciousness having a human experience. That's my truth. That's absolutely similar to you saying you're a spiritual being having a human experience. My validation is internal. However, there is an external validation, which you'll be aware of, which is quantum physics. So everything is consciousness, vibrating at a different frequency, causing shape or form. And when the observer puts their focus on it, hence why it's an agreed collective reality. This reality, 3D reality, is agreed that when we put our attention on something, it's formed. That's part of the conscious program. So when I come from my truth in relation to that, I see it as you see it, so that I'm saying, when I talk about my non-duality, I come from a juxtaposition. I'm aware I'm consciousness having a human experience. So if I just go from the Homo sapien perception, observation, I totally understand your perception of that. However, you've touched on the other side, which is wonderful. This is where we start to get into the nitty-gritty about the spirit being, okay? So for me, if I am a spiritual being and I'm made of consciousness, and my body is obviously the cells, which has been now scientifically proven are made of consciousness, you know, that we don't want to go in, we digress if we go down that road. Then the universe, or our world, should I say, and our universe, obviously is made of the same matter, the same vibration, just different frequencies. Does that, are we resonating, even though we can't come from the same angle, because you're experiencing your experience and I'm experiencing mine, but can you see if there's the mean between where we're resonating very similar there before we go further?
Yeah, I think what you're discussing is that we're coming up with an increasingly accurate description of how the physical world works and how certain principles work. I think even in the spiritual world, in terms of quantum reality, which I think we're just beginning to understand. Yeah. And in the quantum world, there's certainly non-duality, and there's a primary role of consciousness.
Absolutely.
But I think we can, as far as being a human being, as far as being at this point in evolution, so to speak, personal and collective, I think it's important to distinguish between some vague concept that we're all one and the differing agendas of the vast, complex number of species and beings that exist in the universe. Yeah. On our just on our Earth.
With you on that. I mean, many people misconstrued. Well, it's not surprisingly. If you, I never make the bland statement, we're all one. However, if I go down the rabbit hole, I will say everything is consciousness. So we are all one in its true essence, the fundamental reality itself, whatever being, object is in it, it is one. That is made, let's say, by the same creator. Yeah, call it what you want. Okay. And how I described it in other podcasts and continue to do so, you have consciousness. You can call it just consciousness. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you want. And let's say a colander goes over and the light, all the different comes out is the singularity, the different. You can different male, female, good, bad, ugly, child, whatever. But it's all one. Like a wave is to the ocean, it's part of the one whole. So that's, I wouldn't give such a bland statement. I would find an analogy somewhere where I could say yes. So that's coming from a juxtaposition, consciousness and the Homo sapiens sapien. I am consciousness, experience being a human. So we go into the reality part. If I'm experienced being a human in the 3D world, I have to follow the Newtonian laws, obviously, for the start. So, and it's been, you can't have soft without hard. You can't have high without low. A 3D world is a polarity. And the whole point of to experience polarity, we have to have the opposites, which is what I've just said, up, down, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, evil, non-evil, and all that. So that's the experience. So then this reality that we're observing now is part of that. Would you agree with that in a sense? Is that, that we are, let's say, we can even say programmed in, we come into this reality and there are certain laws we have to adhere to have an experience. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I think that that's certainly true. And I think some of those parameters are created by us.
Yeah.
And some of them are created by beings that are greater than us, whether you call them angels, angelic hierarchies, whatever.
We're going to go there.
Go all the way up.
We're going there. We're going there. We're going down the road. We're going there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there. So we've sort of got a basis for the conversation that we're sort of coming from a different perspective, but we know where we are now for this. Because the next area to look at, Well, before we do, let me just jump in and say, okay, we've all spoken about this before. Being an experiencer, whether it's a near-death experience, contact with angels, mediumship, spirit world, what we call ETs, when that occurs, it fractures the 3D reality because we come out of what is known. We float through walls, or we go into other realms, or we speak to those that have passed over. So we look at our reality and say, well, it can't be what it is. It can't be totally true, because if it was, this would not occur. And at the moment, due to the conversations we're all having with each other, we're seeing the fractalization of our 3D reality, because we're breaking Newtonian laws. However, quantum physics 101 allows that. If you are, like, for example, we speak of the wall, which is solid. You try and put a Homo sapien through a wall and it will splatter everywhere, cause and effect. And that's absolutely how it should be in the 3D world. However, on the experiences, whether you're even remote viewing or what you call abduction or anything like that, and in my case, floating through a wall and a window, and there's millions of others that have experienced this, it breaks down the 3D reality that it's not what it seems. We're shifting out. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yeah. I think that there's clear evidence that many human beings, I think all human beings have had some sort of experience of fracturing 3D reality.
Yeah.
That happens in dreams every night.
Yes.
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 And the dream world is as much a part of our existence as our waking world.
Yeah.
And of course, there's these somewhat extraordinary experiences of out-of-body experiences, astral projection, near-death experiences, UFO encounters, alien encounters, again, whatever you want to call them, wherever they're from.
Yeah.
All those things fracture 3D reality.
Yeah.
Clearly, the machines, if you just look at the UFO phenomena, whatever propulsion systems they're using to move around are clearly not based on Newtonian physics. They're not based on any known physics, at least that's been disclosed.
Yeah.
Teslayan physics, Reichian, Ethereum physics, Steiner's Ethereum physics explain that stuff, that phenomena much more easily than any sort of mainline physics.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I think that there are now millions of experiencers who have had some sort of paranormal experience. But I think all human beings, at some point or other, I would say everyone, if they really looked at look deeply enough, would find moments where 3D reality was fractured for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Synchronicity is a way of doing it. I mean, the synchronicity, is a term that's thrown around a lot, but it's a breakdown of different dimensions. It's when the miracle of one dimension interacting with another happens. Okay. And sometimes, if not all the time, I think there's a consciousness or a being helping to create that. I don't think it's a mechanistic thing.
Okay. No, I'm hearing you. No. I mean, I know you're an academic, so I have to cut you off now and again. Yeah, you raise your eyebrows at me, Robert. You know what I mean? And you can't even speak Italian to me, so just don't raise the eyebrows, okay?
Ciao.
Have you been learning Italian just for the podcast?
No.
I did think to go off and do a quick 101 on Italian, and I'd give you a phrase. It'd be very abusive, most probably, but there you go. No, let's get back to the conversation. Raising your eyebrows at me. I'm so not. You wait.
Always calling me an academic.
Well, you're very articulate when you talk. We're not on an interview. This is just a conversation. Sip your mug and slurp. We're not being professional.
It's only water.
Oh, okay. I believe you. Well, you don't speak Italian, so it's not going to be wine, is it? So anyway, we won't. I promise. I'll be nice to you. So how does this resonate with you? So we've gone right up. So we're conscious beings having a human experience, if you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the now that we're in now is the fact that the world that we thought was true is not true. We are experiencing it. However, would you say the individual singularity consciousness, like the wave to the ocean, still
Mm-hmm.
part of it,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is knowing itself or awakening, whatever terminology that's your truth for you, to that it is more than this meat in a suit that works all day and then drops dead and, is given an identity, ideas, concepts, nationality, religion, and blah, blah, blah. It is more, and it is awakening now to see. I will use the word illusion, because if we both agreed, Robert, that Newtonian laws do not apply, they're still here and they're still applying because we're still having this human experience, then it's illusionary. And also the secondary to that, Robert, is it's all made up of consciousness, which is energy, as this physical body is. So could, on that sort of reasoning, we could step to the next part and with that in hand say, well, who is ET then? We won't get into the good, the bad, the ugly, the rich, the poor ET.
Mm-hmm.
We're just talking, who's ET in comparison to us?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that there are a variety of different beings we're encountering. And again, we don't need to get into the debate about whether they're malevolent or benevolent or somewhere in between. Yeah.
I said good and bad. Why did you have to use the academic benevolent? But no, I'm winding you up.
Yeah, well, they're Italian words, malevolent and benevolent.
Oh, bloody Italian! You liar!
They're much more musical than saying good and bad. Good and bad is that's like an Irish meal, potato and come on.
Are you attacking my Irish ancestry here, Robert? That's it, right? Get dirty now. Get the box. I'm hitting you with my plats. I've already.
At least we know how to cook.
Ooh, Robert!
Anyway, getting down to serious business because this is.
I'll tell you what, Robert. Tonight, when you're sleeping, the leprechauns are coming.
I've made friends with the leprechauns. They like me. I have a lot of Celtic heritage in my collective unconscious. But anyway,
I'm now traumatized. You're so not related to me. Right. Anyway, move on. Get out of this. Let's go back down the rabbit hole. Anyway.
You talked about the wave and versus the ocean. I think that's a wonderful metaphor for each of our individual consciousnesses. And I think that, yes, we're constantly interacting with a great variety of beings.
Yes.
And the UFO phenomena is only part of that. Okay. And I think we're beginning to understand that it's not this separate, purely physical nuts and bolts phenomena, that it's, connected to fairy folk and connected to the paranormal and near-death experiences and the beings that are encountered there and out of body and all of these different range of experiences. The Edgar Mitchell's group has done a wonderful job of really doing quality research on that. PHW Atwater's books on near-death experiences are one of my favorite because they.
So all of these, the areas that you've just dropped into the conversation, basically they're saying it's all consciousness, in different shape and form.
Right.
We know that.
It's being. You see, it's to me. I come back
to us one. Yes.
I come back to ontology. Consciousness to me is too generic a term.
I know.
If you have consciousness, if there's consciousness, there's being. So it's important to understand the purpose of those beings.
Life.
Right. Life.
Distance.
Yeah.
You can start changing my language. We've gone from downloads to etching. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Me, Chris, and Ryan have already said it on the other podcast.
Good.
So we're now changing our language again. What are we going to call it now?
What are we going to call what?
I don't know. What did you just say? You know what come to my head? I was looking at you. You can tell this is not an interview. This is so organic. I had you know, like you get a flashback. I was looking at your profile earlier on to see if I can say something really outstanding and, you know, to big you up. I'm so sorry. And I saw that you love Scooby-Doo. And it just came in my head, Scooby-Doo. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I do like Scooby-Doo.
I know you do. I do too, darling. I have not been drinking or licking mushrooms. It's just, it flashed in my head. It's like, you know, someone saying, come on, lighten the mode now. All right. So where were we?
I think we were talking about the waves of singularity, ontology, and consciousness. You know, using fancy terms, but yeah, it's life. It's different forms of life, with different agendas, different purposes. I think every form of life is evolving, becoming more complex. The big question to me is kind of, where is all this headed? Is there some
do that? We're getting there later on. Stop being psychic.
Oh,
not allowed. Just stay in the moment with me, because you know, I'm looking again. You can't go there yet.
All right.
Academics, what they're like. I know everything. So, getting back down the rabbit hole. So really, these other beings, ET, we could say they are us in the singularity, the wave in the ocean. Yeah.
I think there's some connection. I think there's a connection in the sense that everything's connected, but there's a connection in the sense that we have a common heritage, and that's where you get into some of the ancient alien stuff, which I think is too materialistic and too reductionistic, but does present good evidence that there have been interactions between humanity and again a wide variety of different beings for thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years, and whether they're manipulating our DNA. They get into the Mary Rodwell stuff. I think that's intriguing, especially as a psychologist. The alphabet kids, as she calls them. The kids with ADD, OCD. The all the empaths and the kids being born with enhanced psychic ability. We're definitely evolving towards something. So I'm hoping in my good moments, I think we're evolving towards some sort of positive master plan. In my bad moments, and I'm using your Irish language now, good and bad. I'm gonna
slap you with my plants.
In my bad moments, I think we're going to be in for a struggle, but I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive either, because pain and struggle comes with growth, right? And why that is, I don't know. I just know it is.
So let's just stay there, because you just jumped onto the next area of how are we connected. So we're just hover on that one. Obviously, I had Mary Rodwell on my other show and followed her for years. And the research she's done on the Homo sapiens sapien, on humans, is absolutely, there is no one that has done the work that I personally, that's my truth. What she's done is amazing. And what she's brought into our reality, into our consciousness, and helped us to become aware of not only what you spoke about with our connection with these other beings, ET, whatever you want to call them now, but through our ancient civilizations. We've all studied ancient civilizations, but she really brings it to the table. And she's brought to the table the continuation of what's happening now with the children. Okay, so I relate to that. I'm going to try now merge some things together. We've got to the area of like how we connected. So we are connected from source. So obviously, if these beings that have always been there, but for most of the time, most of humanity never really was not terrible. I'm talking Irish again, aren't I? Wasn't aware that they were there. Okay. until the work was done on the individual person, call it raising your frequency or whatever you want, that became aware. And now, even it's quite obvious, even humans that are not even calling themselves spiritual are actually encountering the phenomena of other beings. They've always been here, always. And it seems to me that if we went back to way back in the day, they were seen by humans. I don't know. It's at the moment it resonates. They were seen by humans. Something occurred and then they were hidden, or something happened. But I don't want to go into that. I don't want to digress off on that. So there is a very strong connection. If they're in our reality, Robert, then it's part of our reality. It's not external, obviously. It's part of the 3D reality. I mean, does that make sense to you? So we got a stronger connection than if there's a greater plan, like you stated, we're here, we come to learn, we come to do this. And so for the human, the Homo sapiens sapien, if there's a greater plan and they're in this 3D world with us, it's part of us. They're part of us to experience. Maybe, I don't know how to, everyone's got their own truth, to maybe, I don't know what's the word, to, let's just use the generic word, you're going to kill me, to raise your vibration, become more consciously aware. I'm trying to talk in your language here. Would you agree with that scenario, even though I was a bit tongue-tied trying to get it? It's so hard to get this stuff out.
No, I mean, you're perfectly clear. I think, there are beings that are trying to help us evolve to see more of the universe. I think, again, talking about Rodwell's work and Atwater and those folks were, I think, organically evolving in that direction, but we're getting help from outside sources to see more, to be able to sense more, to be able to understand more. Getting back to to Steiner a little bit, he called us cosmic hermits, and he explained that in terms of human history, there was a need for us to separate from the rest of this vast ecology that we're part of in order to develop on our own, and that at some point we would need to reconnect with a broader universe. And I think that's happening now, and I think that there are forces that are trying to inhibit that, and that's kind of the generic battle between good and evil that's going on right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we hold it there? Because that's perfect. Because obviously, you being you, an academic, you've already jumped ahead to the other ones. Yeah. Whatever. You fake Italian. I'm calling you Scooby-Doo in a minute. It brings, obviously, the latter part of the conversation is, why are they here? Why are they interested in us? Well, you've just basically answered that. Now,
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
You can tell that you're highly intelligent there, Robert. Even if you do love Scooby-Doo and, Anyway, and you can't speak Italian, you're not infiltrated with the mafia, but never mind. You've also touched on how there are beings here, energy beings here. Let's not label them whatever, Palladian, whatever. Let's just say other conscious beings here.
Okay.
That have always been here, that we are now aware of, that are trying to assist us. And we just say to ascend or raise vibrations. We're coming from the Homo sapien perspective here. And then you touched upon there's other conscious beings that really don't want us to do it. Okay. If we just freeze the frame there, step back for 1 second and recall, I'm a conscious being having a human experience. I'm not really the human. I've got nothing to fear. It's an experience that I'm going through in the 3D reality. Then we come back. So we're aware of the two, okay? So if we go to why are they here, we'll go to the positive poly theory. To assist, not infringe on our free will. No one can infringe on our free will as a Homo sapien. We can give our free will away if we want to. And then you would say the negative Nellies do not want us to. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's I think you put that really well. I think that's a good way to see things in a very generic, kind of a generic framework.
Just to hold it, the balance, to have a conversation, because we can't experience, you know my orange analogy, we can't experience the same experience in the same way. We'll have the experience, but it will be different from the social determinants, our religion, our culture, your lack of Italianness, and all things like that, and my Irishness, will perceive it different to you. So if we could hold it in this generic balance, remembering that we are consciousness in the 3D, we're here to experience polarity. So it's going to be goddamn obvious that we not only experience polarity in the Homo sapien, human being, limited being, who's not even aware of who he is, that when we now come into the universal reality, we're going to experience consciousness polarities there, are we not?
Yeah, I think that's again, there's a subtlety there that I think you're capturing, and that's.
Was that a compliment?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
yeah,
I feel good now. Okay.
Yeah, I think you explained that well. I think you kind of, you set up that framework well, and that it kind of then dissolves that polarity, because if we're, polarized beings, we're going to see things in a polarized way. We're going to see things in terms of black and white. And ultimately, I think that has to be the truth. Yes. At least I'm hoping so. But otherwise, the universe would be some sort of random contest for survival. It would.
Robert, there's nothing random about you, dear. And I'm chaos, aren't I? The speedboat. This you call me the speedboat. Off she goes. There's nothing random. I know. I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So I think that again, there's a lot of traditions, including Steiner. I think he talks about this well, that indicate these the evil beings, the Ahriman, Lucifer, and so forth. They have gifts for humanity too. They're not entirely. Nothing is entirely evil. No. They are beings that are trying to hinder our development.
Yeah.
They were assigned that role, but according to Steiner, they overstepped their bounds. So they're trying to take more power than they were supposed to.
Yeah.
I have no way of verifying that, but it kind of makes sense in terms of what I see. Mm-hmm. So it creates a subtle kind of middle ground between pure evil and pure good. Mm-hmm. Like in Tolkien, the contrast between good and evil is purposefully very clear. There's a huge difference between Aragorn and an orc.
Yeah, I know, but Tolkien, he's taken it from the human perspective. We could transference. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't think we should forget, we need to be in the juxtaposition. From the Homo sapien, yes, you can say that. But remember, we are consciousness having the human experience. So we could perceive it from the Homo sapien human observation experience, which when you would have the terminologies good and evil, if you don't do what I say, you're going to burn in hellfire for eternity. If you do as I say, you may just get to heaven. That's a human experience. Right. We are now we're fractalizing this reality where them beliefs and even the science is fractalized as well. So we could take that and go back to the two polarities in consciousness from the conscious perspective. Okay, I would state, don't you shoot me, there is really no good and evil. It is consciousness, as you stated you quoted from Steiner and Tolkien, that is trying to, it's not bad, you sort of hinder the positive polys, but it's supposed to be there, contraction, retraction, to push them, consciousness, to know itself, that it's not the limited meet human beings.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm contrasting Steiner and Tolkien. I'm not criticizing Tolkien. I love Tolkien,
No.
but he creates a very kind of black and white picture
Yes.
from the perspective of men of Middle Earth, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that if you look at the shamanic traditions, there's the encountering of these beings who dismember the shaman, who create this very painful initiatory experience, which from Freemasonic societies and other, mystery schools have their own initiations that can be very painful.
Yeah.
Castaneda talks about that in his books.
Yeah.
And it's all designed to break down the ordinary consciousness, the 3D reality or inner dialogue, and crack open the much broader world that we don't normally see in our 3D reality. So there's purpose in that.
Even analogies. They're but they're good analogies. And however, I always feel we need to use discernment and go deeper. I mean, my analogy is this glorious analogy. It's nothing like theirs. I always give this analogy of what's happening to us is like, you won't know this because you're not a male. You're not. You are a male. Here I go with you. You really fuzz my brain.
Good.
I'm the female. You wouldn't know this. You're the male. I always say an analogy I give of this polarity is what's going on. We think it's suffering. We think it's evil. And we put our attention on it and we go into it and we create it. When actually, I would say it's no different to a woman giving birth. Hear me out. Don't shoot me yet. When you're in labor to give birth, you are in the worst pain that is undescribable. You've got a razor cutting your spine to pieces. The female's abdomen's on fire. You're so close to death. The pain is all consuming. It's the worst. I hope I'm sort of really dramatizing this enough for you to understand, Robert, how. Anyway, but then all of a sudden you go through all of this and it stops, and life, creation, new beginnings begin. A new continuation of consciousness begins. And my God, when there's only a few women that would say, I'd never do that again. I went through it 6 times. Come on, it can't be that bad, can it? Really? But do you understand the analogy of? Yeah,
I think that's a beautiful analogy. I think that's the best analogy that I've ever heard. It's even better than the shamanic dismemberment of the body and all that, because it directly links pain with new life. And
you
talk about polarities, right? I mean, that's got to be one of the greatest polarities that human beings can experience, which I'm sure I experienced as a woman in previous lives. So,
I wouldn't want to meet you as a woman. Do you know what I mean? Mind you, if you spoke Italian, you're in the mafia, you might have some standing in my eyes, but
I'm sure I look different.
Yeah. Anyway, so, anyway, I'll send you the check in the post. We keep sending checks to each other, fictional checks. Is that Bitcoin or something I've heard about? Anyway, let's not go there. So if we can take that analogy in this conversation, and then our connection with them, okay? Like there are some experiences that have contact with these other beings, and the way they perceive it is not it's a negative Nelly experience. It's traumatizing, which I totally appreciate. I have a background that when I was in the human state was traumatizing. However, there are some experiences that have a traumatizing experience, and then through time they realized there was a learning, there was an opening up inside, they changed the way they looked at the experience, so the experience changed, and they're saying for the better themselves. I'm not saying any way is right or wrong. I'm just trying to go really deep into consciousness. And what does it mean, consciousness, with all the experiences, not only as a Homo sapiens sapien, Robert, but with our connection to these beings that are here now. There are, I have never encountered a negative Nelly, other being. But as I've said in the other podcast, I always black out if I'm taken away. So I'm quite happy not to recall anything. But as I've said, the analogy of giving birth, I don't need to go and get regressed. If something occurred for consciousness to evolve and I'm part of this, this is the most important time in this 3D reality, then I don't need to go into that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that being said, with what's going on in our 3D world at the moment, and we're just going to be exceptionally careful here, if there's an understanding that what's going on is not quite what it seems, it's illusionary in a way, like the wave to the ocean, or how does that or not resonate with you? It's happening, yes it is, but it's not quite what it seems. Go to the polarities of consciousness.
Yeah, if you look at dreams, I mean, nightmares aren't necessarily what they seem. People have repetitive nightmares, and until they face whatever they're being induced to face, the dreams continue to be frightening. I mean,
But there's a secondary to that, though, isn't there? Hold on, sorry to interject on that, but don't want to let this one go. Yes, I agree with that, but there's a secondary. When you're in and I do use this in some groups, when you're in a dream and it's what you call a nightmare, I don't know, you're being chased by a non-Italian Robert down the road. He's stabbing you. As soon as your consciousness shifts into the waking state, supposed, you go, that was just a dream. It wasn't real. However, when you're in that conscious state, what we call in brackets the dream state, it's real, Robert.
Yes.
It's really real. Unless, obviously, I lucid dream, so half the time I keep going, I'm getting out of this one. But when you don't lucid dream, you wouldn't know the difference between that dream state. Stop writing notes up and plagiarizing me. You wouldn't know that. I'm Irish, beware. No, he's Italian. No, he's not Italian. He doesn't even speak Italian. So does that make sense to you as well, Robert? There's a double to the dream state. There's a double. The one where you can do some work and face some issues. Other beings come into our vibration easily in this 3D polarity to assist, to show us. I get that. But for an awakening of a conscious being to who it truly is, to know thyself, you say, well, I'm in that dream. I felt pain, fear. When Robert put the knife in my stomach, I felt it. I felt anger. I felt a victim, all in this, and it was a dream state of consciousness. It's so real. Thank God we wake up in the next state of consciousness. So that shows you, well, this reality, what we call awake, is not real. What we're doing with consciousness at the base, we're fractalizing more and more and more this 3D realities with such a conversation. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think dreams are certainly, that's what I think we were talking about before, is that everyone has had some paranormal experience if you've had a dream, because it's bizarre things happen. We have those experiences are just as valid as our so-called waking experiences. To my mind, we encounter fears that we have the potential to overcome. We have the opportunity to overcome. Just like we do in our waking lives. So I think that when we enter to the astral world and sleep, I think we are entering another dimension. We are automatically breaking through the 3D reality. And so that's one reason why dreams are so valuable. They're predictive. They in some ways are able to chart our progress. They can provide us information. Certainly, there's a lot of tremendous amount of creativity that's come out of dreams. I mean, I dream. A lot of my dreams have music in them, and I'm not a musician. And I just find that fascinating. And some of the music is kind of fairly complex. It's something I could never create consciously.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole other dimension of creativity that we tap into. We choreograph our own dreams. I think that there are other beings that interact with us in dreams too. So
I definitely. I mean,
you know, it's not all us creating it, but
no. I mean, I'm aware of the likes of Beethoven, Einstein, and go on and go on. So, especially Einstein, in the dream state is when everything comes. Many of the music scores were in the dream state. We've got a new term, the etchings come in through the dream state. I know many of my experiences years ago, the strongest ones of the etchings, the downloads, but I had it visual as well, was in the dream state. And at the time, I was sort of saying, well, why do I have to be in the dream state of consciousness? And it was to do with the oscillation, the vibration of that such frequency connecting with me in the conscious state. I wasn't in that state of a frequency that it could resonate with me. And that's a sort of rough analogy.
Yeah.
So I too understand. See, for me, coming from non-duality, on the conscious aspect of it, consciousness does not sleep. Okay. Consciousness has created this body, so it can experience the human experience in a world of polarity. So when we go on to the sleep state, it's just a different stage of consciousness, different frequency of consciousness. Where is it the delta we go down to? I don't know. I can't recall. I did learn it once, but it's just
the delta is deep sleep. Whatever,
it's gone with old age. You know, you're the academic. You can just correct me. I will allow that. We just go into different states of consciousness.
Right.
We're not. There isn't. The human being at one point thought it needed to sleep. It was really gone to sleep, and that consciousness went to sleep. And it's now we're in this fractalized 3D world that we know that's not the case, because you can go into a meditation and go into that sleep state, but not physically asleep. So again, we're fractalizing. I said that word so many times tonight. We're fractalizing the 3D experience again. So the more we go deeper into the essence or what is consciousness now, it takes us not just further down the rabbit hole. We're now underground, Robert, and everything we think was true is not true. I think this is a paradigm shift we're in now, and the choices we make now, in this now, where we are, I think will then stop writing down what I'm saying, Robert. See what he's doing? He's plagiarizing me. I told you he wasn't Italian. They wouldn't do that.
I'm writing down a shopping list, so don't worry about it.
Whatever, Trevor, whatever. It takes us into the way that we perceive our reality. We can't perceive it. We can't connect to it as we used to. There's no going back. Would you agree with that now?
Yeah, I think once the genie's out of the bottle, there's no going back. Some parts of us, I think, would like to, because it's simpler, it's easier, and I think a lot of people choose that path. So, I think it's significant. I mean, it sounds simple and straightforward and obvious, but I think it's significant that you use the word choice, because I do think we're at an inflection point where people will be making important choices in terms of what they allow in, what they refuse to allow in, how much they grow, and how much they are sort of left behind.
Choice, I think, is good. Sorry to interrupt, but for me, choice is it. You make a choice. What choice you make creates the reality that you experience. That's basic. The more that you become aware that you're not this meat in a suit and you're worthless and stupid and you've got to do this and do that, and you're a beautiful conscious being just having an experience. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just having the experience that you chose to have. I know people don't like that. And I've said it on the podcast before. When I was told years ago, I chose this, I had to be respectful because he was in a religious, very high religious man, and said they forged my signature. But I understand it now. Mm-hmm. It's the reality we experience, Robert, is by the choices we make. We choose. If, you know, for example, if you're, you, Robert, which you're not, but, you know, if you was a negative Nelly and you're victim and you're moaning, and I would feel that, obviously being another conscious being, I have a choice. Do I stay and feed you your victimhood, and then you feed it back to me? And we got this reality where we're pissed off, we want to commit suicide, and we're not going anywhere. We're stuck in this perpetual circle of beliefs. Or we, you know, I say, you know, I'm sorry, Robert, you know, go and see a psychotherapist or something. I jest that. It's not the reality I wish to experience. You can help someone in that state and take them to the right person who possibly could help them or give them, you know, pointers, but you can't. So I would choose not to. It's my free choice to do what I wish to do with my reality. Okay? I'm not talking harming another being. I'm not talking judging another being. But I still have free choice, which even these beings actually are fully aware of. And
yes, I think so.
What happens is what you call the negative Nelly beings and the negative Nelly. I use that word, guys, because I'm not going down the hate road. Yeah, I lighten it slightly. The negative Nelly power mongers now, they don't do anything to us. We go, it's their fault, they're doing it. No, we give our free will to them. We comply. We say, yes, okay, you can do that. So they're not actually, this is what no one seems to even see. So, you know, if you say to me, Gloria, I think you should be, you know, for the greater good, handcuffed or something, or whatever, restricted, Gloria. And I went, yeah, okay, then you didn't force me. I complied. I made a choice. I made a choice. So you did nothing to me. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially take that on the greater scale now, what we're in.
Yeah, I think that we're at a point where our choices are going to have great significance in terms of whether we comply with this kind of electronic world and transhumanism and artificial intelligence, this hive mind that forces are trying to create, or we try to, you know, maintain our human dignity and maintain our human independence from all that. Again, I think there's always been this conflict between spiritualizing matter, and I'm getting, I guess, academic here, or, you know, esoteric.
You can be academic with me, Robert.
Okay. Yeah, the esoteric traditions, you know, talk about spiritualization of matter, and you know, Christ's transformation in the Christian lore is Christian lore is part of that. The idea that we can become where the duality dissolves, where, you know, spirit and matter are one. And that's an organic singularity. The singularity that's being pushed by artificial intelligence is an electronic one. It's an artificial one. And Steiner believed there's a being Ahriman, you know, behind that. So that's one reason why, you know, Steiner seems prescient to me, because he you know, despite his faults, and I certainly don't believe everything he said, that panorama is definitely playing out. And I think we do have choices, whether to get in touch with our free will or to act as, I hate to use the term sheep, but, you know, because that's been, you know, that's
no, it's compliance. It's compliance. As I said, we have a choice. We all have a free choice to choose what we wish to experience. We cannot blame what's going on on somebody else because
Yeah.
we said, yes, we do it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's it. So
I agree.
For this, for the 3D consciousness, we're looking at the experiences now, our interactions. We have to have the polarity to experience this, to get to the points where we take back. Well, I don't know if we take back what we've given away. We realize what we've given away, stop blaming others and say, okay, I need to make a different choice now. I'm not going to conform to that. I'm not going to do that. I mean, the collective consciousness has done it over millennium. Yeah. You know, they collectively come and say, well, no, what once was thought was okay to do, then at some point consciousness evolved enough to say, no, that's inhumane. We shouldn't do that. So, you know, it's the evolution of consciousness itself. Coming from the Homo sapiens sapien collective, he's writing it again, guys. I'm suing him. You know, I'm going to sue him and get my leprechauns after him. So I think we need to, before we close this conversation, that we just have that. It's not, I want to portray out there, if you can, it doesn't matter if, you know, this is not your truth, and I wouldn't expect it to anyone to believe my truth or Robert's truth. But if something in this conversation is just, well, you know what, you know, think about an alternative, or I might just go and look that up, or just go and delve a bit more into it. We don't have to, we are so, at this point, our choices are critical at this point now. Would you agree with that? Without going to a doomsday thing, it's critical that we make better choices for our personal self. Don't worry about humanity. No good worrying about the collective and everyone out there if you can't sort your own shit out. If you can't do the work on yourself first. Yeah,
I think that's where, you know, as a psychotherapist, this is something I talk to people about all the time.
Look at that. He's impressed with me, guys. Watch.
Yeah, very. I mean, it all happens ultimately on an individual level. Yeah. So you have 7 billion plus people. And like you said, no one tasted, the experience of tasting an orange isn't the same for everyone. But what you're getting at is the whole victim narrative and getting away from that. Yeah. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want someone to blame, want to point the finger at someone for their choices, which if they step back and start to take responsibility, then they can make better choices.
Absolutely.
They can grow as human beings. That's where, you know, schema therapy comes in, which is
absolutely
something I wrote about in that other paper I sent you.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful, underrated system of psychology. But it really helps people understand the patterns in their lives, and you can connect it to karma, or you don't need to. You can just you can if you want. Yeah. But if you're not inclined to connect it to karma and past lives, just focus on this life.
Yeah.
You know, if you're making this same mistake over and over again, whose fault? You know, whose fault is that?
Yes.
Or is it really no one's fault? It's just something to understand and to take control of. So individually and collectively, yes, I think we're reaching a point where things could go very badly. Things could go extremely well. And, you know, that's also going to be an individual experience. What is an apocalypse for one person may not be an apocalypse for another.
Yeah.
What's happening
on the way you perceive it. It's like Wayne Dyer 101, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The same thing was like giving birth analogy. You know, it's the individual doing the work on the self, that stop blaming others, stop saying they're doing it. If you don't like that reality, don't comply. Say no.
Right.
That's simple as.
And that can be very empowering, as I think you know.
Individually, individual consciousness. That's very empowering. I mean, and it breaks down a lot of the belief system the individual had of I'm not really worth anything. What difference can I make, and all that crap? Because, you know, the conditioning that was supposed to happen, that did happen in the 3D reality, is you're not good enough. You can't do jack shit. You know, blah 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 blah. You know, And look how far you got. The academic. And look at me, the crazy speedboat with the blacks. We're going to lift this up because we're coming to close now. I must say, Robert, it has been an absolutely riveting, funny, deep conversation. We will be getting together again in the secret panel. I nearly said secret squirrel then. Well, I'm sure by then you may learn some Italian. I want to thank you. Before we go, is there any inspiration for the audience that are going to watch this? You may need to take the Valium after. Who the hell are the leprechauns? Is there any inspiration you can give to the audience? Anything you want to leave on a high?
Well, I think what we just talked about, I think, is inspiring, and that's the idea that you can empower yourself by making different choices, better choices, and not buying into a narrative of fear, not buying into a narrative of there existing some ultimate evil that we're all fighting, but understanding that we have many more powers and capabilities as human beings than we tend to tap into.
Yes.
And that can be as simple as an act of caring for someone. It doesn't have to be some supernatural experience or telepathic ability.
Yes.
It can be making a remarkable difference in someone's day.
Absolutely.
just by adopting a positive attitude and showing some care.
Smile, saying hi,
right.
saying hello, and not on the internet, outside in reality that we're in. Human beings, just
I agree.
Smile. They need it now. If you go out there, just smile, say hi, how are you? It's all you got to do.
Just imagine if everyone woke up tomorrow and decided, well, there isn't going to be any more war. We just had enough. And
we can choose that. Don't imagine it. Listen, why don't we choose it?
Yeah, exactly.
That is how simple it is. Choose it. Choose it.
Everyone would want that, or almost everyone would want that. But we're stuck in our 3D realities. We're stuck in our collective view of history, and all of the crap that inhibits us from becoming wholer beings. So.
Did you notice I said bullshit and you said crap because you're an academic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an Italian word too.
Oh, it's speaking Italian to me. On that note, Robert, thank you. It's been an absolute blast. Oh, God.
Yeah, same here.
I'm like Chris said. He says that. I'm English. I'm not American. Here comes the posh voice. No, it's been fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, same here. You're very welcome.
Conversation. I will see you on the panel in a couple of weeks. We're doing our panel.
Yep.
And unto them, I'd like to thank the audience. I hope you can take something from this, if not my insanity. Robert will keep working on me as my psychotherapist fail. Absolutely. Just don't do a dissertation on Gloria. So thank you guys for watching the podcast, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Take care.